And I think that when we feel like all of those pieces have been ripped apart and we're not quite sure how to be the glue and how to mend it back together, that stress as a woman, even for me, has been something that I'm still having to walk out. And I think that part for women, just the amount of anxiety and exhaustion, and I think that's made a lot of people very heartsick.
Well, we're pretty excited to have Natalie Grant with us, as well as Charlotte Gambill, and some pretty exciting things are going on with both of them. One of them is something called the Dare to Be Tour. We're going to talk about that. But guys, thanks for being on the podcast today.
Hey, thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Now, looks like you guys are on a bus. What are you? Is that what that is?
We are. We are on a bus, and we left Nashville last night. It was a 14 and some change drive, 14 hours. And it was really warm and lovely in Nashville, and it is like we're in the North Pole. We're in Minneapolis, but honestly, it feels like the North Pole.
But I didn't spend the night on the bus. I spent the day on an airplane getting from England all the way over to the US. So we kind of have this crazy life where we're just like, okay, where do we all need to meet up? So a bus got her here. I got off an airplane, and now here we are.
Well, if someone's thinking about coming to this, what are they going to experience when they get there?
Well, you know, we've been to Kansas City with our Dare to Be tour before, and it was such an I'll actually never forget that show. It was such an incredible atmosphere, and you could just sense the hunger of the women. And I think that's, for me, what Dare to Be is all about. It's about encountering the presence of God and community with one another. And that was like 2019. Remember way back then in 2019 when life seemed normal? Remember that? But it's funny because I think even now more than ever, people are desperate for encounter with God and encounter with each other, just being in community with one another and stirring up our faith and encouraging each other. And that's really what Dare to Be is all about. Charlotte, if you've never heard her, she teaches the Bible like I have never heard in my entire life. And I've known her now for over 15 years. And she just brings the Bible to life. And I love this conference because when you say conference, especially a women's conference, you're usually thinking, okay, I've got to find a babysitter for the kids. This is going to be like a 2-day ordeal. It's going to be a whole thing. But we actually pack all the content of like a 2-day conference into 2.5 hours, you know, on an evening. And it's a powerful, powerful night.
Yeah, I mean, the whole way it came about is that God threw this whole thing together. We didn't come up with a clever plan. We just followed the obedience of God, because really we were friends first, and then this kind of flowed out of our friendship. So I think that's another thing about Dare to Be is the flow of what the event is very much comes from our journey as friends, our journey as those that are trying to figure out this journey as women in ministry, mums, you know, friends, sisters. And I think, you know, one of the things that Nat and I always have said is that it can't be about performance, it has to be about presence. And so for us, Dare to Be is an evening that's all about the presence of God and not about a performance from us two. Because you know what? Nobody needs to get a ticket for that. I mean, we'll sing and she'll sing and I'll preach, but honestly, if the presence of God isn't there, then, you know, we don't want to be a part of it, and we don't want to be asking people to be in it. And honestly, that's where we see God show up every single time, when we actually give him center stage.
You know, Natalie, you were talking about performance, and I had an opportunity to hear you in person singing and really ministering to the women in Christian media recently. And what I saw was a group of Christian women who hadn't seen each other in a very long time, and we were cackling, I'll just say. And there you were performing, but not. You were ministering from the stage. And I thought, this is very interesting. I was at the back of the room and I wondered, how is Natalie going to handle this? Because everybody's having so much fun visiting with each other. And yet Natalie's up there singing her heart out. And just to speak to your spirit, you pressed on because it was you and the Lord, and that's all that mattered. And I could tell. And it really affected me to watch. So I appreciate what you're saying about it not being a performance, because I witnessed it. I witnessed your love for the Lord and for those women who, who we're having a hard time multitasking. I'll just put it that way. So blessings on you. Thank you. And I'm just excited about what you're going to do with the Dare to Be tour coming up, and just the ministry that's going to pour from your heart.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that.
I love that you were talking about your friendship. You know, this kind of was born out of your friendship. And it's interesting because I just saw something online the other day talking about how God brings people into our lives to use for his glory, the relationships that he fosters. And sometimes we can really, I think, miss what he's trying to do. Like we get wrapped up in the enjoyment, our personal enjoyment of the friendship. And so I just thought it was so, the way that you phrased it, like we let God lead us, you know, out of this friendship that he brought together to create this event where now your friendship is ministering to all these people, which is just so incredible.
Well, it's funny because it would have been really easy. I'm always taken back to the moment that I met Shar, and I'll let her tell the story of how we met, because it's actually kind of an unbelievably miraculous God story. But also being women in ministry and being women that are busy, and just our personality, we didn't really have a lot of close friends. I mean, I had a close friend and she has a close friend back in England, but this is, I think you'll know my heart when I say this, but it's sometimes hard to trust somebody's motivation of why they want to be your friend, especially when you're someone that has any kind of a platform or any kind of, you know. And at that stage of my life, gosh, that was 2005. And I just remember I had a song called Held, and it was the first record of mine that really, like, kind of, for lack of a better way to put it, it kind of blew up. And it just I felt pulled in a million different directions. I felt somebody was always wanting something from me that I was like, wait, I didn't sign up for any of this. I felt like I wasn't really known for me. And finding Charlotte was finding a friend that actually had no clue, wanted nothing from me, but saw me for me. And it would have been really easy to just stay in the comfort of that friendship. I was like, wait, I have a friend in England now. I have a reason to go visit England, and we'll just go on vacations together. And our kids are kind of similar age, so we can do family life together. And it really was an act of obedience to say, wait a second, God didn't actually go to all this trouble so that we could just go on vacations together. What would actually happen if I lay down my ministry and you lay down yours, and we make a decision to put it together? How much further could God use us when we choose to do that? And I feel like we've been, you know, actually walking that out now for the past 10 years. And we've seen thousands of, I forget what the last number is, because we do like old school call to salvation at every event. We don't just want to get together and entertain women who already believe what we believe. In the world we're living in this day and age, people need Jesus. I mean, they need to have an encounter with the gospel. And I feel like, I don't know, could you tell me how many thousands of people?
20,
it was like over 20,000 first-time decisions for Christ.
Hmm.
And so when you're like, wow, our simple yes, you know, when you say yes and you don't even know what God is doing, but you choose to be obedient, what God can do with our simple yes is further and beyond what we could ever do on our own.
And it doesn't make any sense. You know, it's not like it's a friendship of convenience, right? Like I live an ocean away, like we just said. You know, I was on a plane last night. She was on a bus last night. This doesn't make sense. And I think that's another reason why we could have just stayed as friends instead of doing ministry. You know, I just literally went home for 5 days to England to throw a birthday party for my son to come back out on tour. So it doesn't make any sense on your body clock or on your scheduling of life. But it came down to that place of obedience. And how we met is so miraculous that we knew that eventually, if God was going to go to all that trouble to put us together, there would be an ask. And I think sometimes God goes above and beyond to do things in our life for us, but then we never actually lay that back down as a sacrifice for God. You know, the story of Isaac, right? You know, Abraham desperately wants this child, and then God gives him this miracle. But then the question is, are you willing to give the miracle back? And I think that's been the journey of this friendship. God gave us a miracle of a friendship, but then are you willing to give that friendship back to be used in the hands of God? And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck. We like to receive it, but I'm not sure that we like to sacrifice it.
Mm,
Point.
that's really good. What is it that you feel like in our time right now that women really need to hear?
Oh, wow. Um,
Is there,
I,
as you
yeah,
talk to people, is there a commonality?
I think that we haven't even begun to measure in real terms the stress and the anxiety that people have had to carry through this last season.
Yeah.
And for different reasons, you know, just think about the turmoil that's just been in families. I just think about my own. I think about the arguments and people being this opinion and this person has this opinion, and things that we never even had to discuss before, things that was okay to stay under the radar because we didn't have to make them important. And all of a sudden there's division in families. There's more division right now in families than ever before. And I think that as women, it's not that you haven't had to carry that. Kangle Fritz, it's not that you haven't, but women, the way God designed us, we're glue, right? We're glue. We are always holding something together for somebody somewhere, whether you're married or single, whether you're a mom or not. If you're a woman, you are the glue and you're holding pieces together. And I think that when we feel like all of those pieces have been ripped apart, and we're not quite sure how to be the glue and how to mend it back together, that stress as a woman, even for me, has been something that I'm still having to walk out. And I think that part for women, just the amount of anxiety and exhaustion, and I think that's made a lot of people very heartsick.
I think you're right. I think just speaking from perspective of a guy, we're not as relational. I mean, you guys are very, I mean, I go from one state to another, move jobs. It's not as big of a deal. I pulled my wife out of her community. Her best friend was just 2 blocks down the street, and then move her somewhere else. Now, it wasn't really our choice, some of the stuff that happened, but that's huge.
Yes.
It's not as big of a deal for a guy. I agree with you.
Yes. So I think that part for women, just having community, and sometimes, I mean, there is power in numbers always.
Mhm.
And I think just being around other women and going, wait a second, I'm not the only one who's felt like I've been a failure as a mom. I'm not the only one who's felt like I'm failing because I just I don't have the get up and go like I used to have. I'm not the only one that doesn't, like, I think that part of it for women, just the opportunity to connect, to be encouraged, to realize that you're not alone, to see that you are valued and seen outside of an Instagram page where we sometimes so often get lost. I mean, I've been like the queen of Instagram. I used to post like crazy. And some, like right now, just even today, I woke up going, I just have nothing to say. I have nothing. I just don't have anything to say anymore. And how many more pictures can I put up of my kids and my dog? I mean, and I think just that exhaustion is felt by just kind of women everywhere, you know? And I think that's the beauty of Dare to Be, is coming together, remembering what matters, having an encounter with the Lord, going, God, man, your presence is actually our weapon. We can use it to fight our anxiety. We can use it to fight our loneliness. We can use it to fight when we're overwhelmed. And I'm going to be together with other women, and I'm going to feel this sense of community again, that even in that room, though there will be multiple different opinions on multiple different things, we can have this commonality of Christ, and kind of remembering, wait a second, he is the center, and maybe we've forgotten to put him at the center, but when we put him back at the center, things just seem to make a lot more sense.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
You know, Natalie, I have to take you back to your professional life and acknowledge that 8 Grammy Awards and now nominated for another one again. Wow. Congratulations. What does that mean in your career?
Oh gosh. So I wish it was 8 Grammy Awards. It's 9 Grammy nominations. So what it means is that I feel like the bridesmaid a lot. Just kidding. No, honestly, I do think when it comes to the Grammy Awards, it is one of those moments where you say it really is just an honor to be nominated. Like I've never lost sight of the fact of what I'm like, wait a second, there's only 5 people that have made music, like 5 people that get to be recognized with that nomination. So it's such an honor, but I think a big thing for me that I can honestly say, and even when I talk to other artists, it's hard for me to believe that I've been doing this for 23 years now. My first record came out back in 1999. And when you look at females in our industry, they don't usually, there's not very many of us that make it over 20 years. Like there just aren't. And there's so many reasons I could speak to why I think that may be. But one thing that I can say is I've never lost the wonder. I've actually, even through all the exhaustion or the ups and the downs of an industry, or, I've never lost the wonder that I get to do what I love to do for the one that I love the most, that this microphone I hold used to be a hairbrush, and you people used to be stuffed animals, and I dreamed of it as a little kid, and somehow somebody chooses that they want to listen to my music. I think that asking the Lord to never have a sense of entitlement, but always keep the wonder that it's a privilege, is honestly been the thing that's kept me going all these years.
I
Well,
love that.
one of the things I think that you should be nominated for Grammy for, and that is the amazing performance at the national championship for your
Yes.
I mean, for the national anthem. I mean, wow. Now, is that something you practice, or how do you nail that? I mean, that was just amazing. I don't know.
Well, it's really funny because first of all, anybody who knows me, I'm a football fanatic, but I'm a pro football fan, but like a football fanatic. Like people, I think sometimes there's a stereotype that it's more of a man's. I'm like, no. I could talk to any guy and I probably know more about football. Like I love football. And so I think that for me, that was when somebody called and said, hey, you're getting an offer to sing the national anthem at the national championship game, I thought they were punking me. I was like, what? No way. Like, no way. First of all, why me? But getting to do that was such a joy. But the part that people don't know is, so if y'all know who my husband is, he's a really incredible songwriter and producer named Bernie Herms, and he also has perfect pitch. And so he came out on the field with me and gave me my starting pitch. He's literally like a human pitch pipe.
Wow.
And so he was giving me my starting note. Well, right before we walked out on the field, he looks at me and he goes, I think you should do this a half a step up than you've ever done it before. And I go, what? He goes, no, I think it'll be more exciting. Just trust me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if this is too high and I miss it, then I'm in trouble. This is like national this is a bigger platform than maybe you've been on before. So
Yeah.
he's like, no, trust me, do it a half step up. So I go out there and he gives me my starting pitch. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it a half step up. And then he has to leave the field, and it's another 3 minutes before the anthem starts, and there's music playing. So I don't realize it, but I go another half step up. So when I am singing the anthem, I'm like, I gotta really put myself into this. This feels higher than normal. And I'm like going for it. I get off the field and I can see my husband's just has this huge smile. I'm like, what? He goes, you actually went a whole other half step up. You just sang that a whole key higher than you've ever done it before. And I was like, well, then that had to be the Lord, because that doesn't make any sense. It had to be the Lord. That had to be the Lord showing up and helping me. But all jokes aside, right before I went out, my pastors in Nashville called and prayed for me. And their exact prayer was, I know that it might sound a funny prayer, Lord, but make that football field a church. And I feel like that's actually that's what happened. And that God honored that prayer. And it was it's kind of one of those bucket list moments, you know?
All right, well, let's go to church here. We have the clip. Here we go. This is.
For the land of the free.
Wow.
Yes. And the home of the brave.
Hallelujah.
Wow.
Somebody do it.
Yeah. I just got
all joking aside, when we were out here on tour the other day, she had a shiny microphone and I had the headset microphone on, and I don't know how, we were just a little hysterical, probably a little jet lagged, tour lagged, whatever, but that we always have names for each other. So we decided, because of her voice, I was joking that she was like Britney. So
And
I was like, she's like,
Brittany. I'm like, Whitney.
she's like, and you're English, so you're Brit. So now I'm Brit and she's Wit for the Brit Wit tour.
That's cute.
the Brit Wit tour. That's awesome. I love that. So I'm just curious, guys, what is, just individually, what is God teaching you lately?
Ooh, wow.
Sorry.
That's a big question.
Ankle twist.
Talk about a left turn. No, actually, it's a pretty easy one for me to answer, just because I kind of feel like I'm always in the middle of I don't know if it's because I'm a bad student or what it is, because I feel like he's always teaching me. But right now, he's teaching me about surrender. And, there's some things that he's called me to lay down, and kind of a bit of a different mantle he's asked me to pick up. And in the natural, it doesn't necessarily it makes some sense, but it is definitely a sacrifice for me in the moment. And just, it's easy to talk about obedience until it's easy to tell other people that obedience brings blessing. It's easy to tell other people that when you're just obedient to what God asks you to do, he will do immeasurably more than all you could ever ask, think, or imagine. It's a whole other thing to follow your own advice and to actually choose to walk that out yourself. And he's teaching me how to actually walk out the words that I've been telling other people to walk out. And it's harder than I realized.
And I think a lot of times, most of the times, actually, that's the amazing thing about Dare to Be. Often what Nat's sensing, which has come out in a lyric or in a song, is what I've been sensing, which comes out in a message or in something I write. So we're often very much on the same page without even telling each other about it, which is the cool thing about how God's woven this together. But for me, one of the big things that I've been thinking, I do a lot of leadership and mentoring and teaching. And so I've been talking to a lot of leaders recently. And one of the things that I feel is a challenge right now, which goes with what Nat's saying, is that I felt that God say to me, Charlotte, it's time for you to stop filling your capacity with your availability and start filling your capacity with your ability. And the Bible talks about how he gave according, Jesus gave according to their ability, right? In other words, some got 5, some got 2, some got 3. And I think what's happened is we've been so trying to be the 5 or be the 6 or be the 7 that we try and do everything, because when we're available and we have a little skill set that can bend or twist a certain way, our availability becomes what we fill our capacity with. So we're around so we can do it. We say yes because it does fit in our schedule. And I felt God say, I need you to stop doing that in this season of your life. And I need you to fill your capacity instead with your ability. So what is the thing that I have gifted you to do that you are uniquely designed by me to do? Now fill your capacity with that, which means that there might be seasons where you don't have a lot on your schedule because you're saying no to a lot of stuff that you've always been available to do, but they're not necessarily your ability. So for me, I think that's the challenge of the season that a lot of us are in, is going, okay, I'm getting to an age, I'm about to turn 50. We're both at a similar age in life. We're like, okay, this next season has to look like maximizing my ability that God gave me, not just using my availability.
That's good.
That'll preach. Yeah, and don't preach it before I have. That was a little free. You asked me what God said to me. Now I know people are going to go, I'll use that on Sunday. Yeah, you're welcome.
Charlotte's like, you just stole my sermon there.
Right? I'm like, that's what happens when people ask you questions. You're like, I don't really know if I want to share this yet because now someone's going to preach that.
Sermon thievery.
That's right.
So let me ask you this. What would you say at this point in time is bringing you joy?
Oh, wow. You know what is really bringing me joy that I think that some parents that are going to be watching and listening to this need to know. I've got 3 daughters. Obviously, anyone who's followed me for any length of time knows that, because I talk and post about them ad nauseum. But so when I had my twin daughters, who just turned 15, by the way, when I had my twin daughters, I can't even, if I had a penny for every time somebody said to me, oh, enjoy the younger years. Girls are so fun when they're young, but oh my gosh, hold on for the teen years. It's going to be so hard. And it's so many people. and that's like everybody's thing. And sometimes I wonder, I'm not saying that it's all ease and roses every day, but every once in a while, I wonder if sometimes the parents that are walking through that are actually experiencing some of that because they were confessing it their entire time. They were confessing, oh my gosh, the teen years are going to be so hard. The teen years have been my favorite stage of parenting so far. And having teenage daughters is literally what brings me joy. And honestly, yes, every day I've got another daughter that just turned 11. So I've got 2 daughters at 15 and another daughter at 11. And I have to be on my toes at all times. Like I cannot let a single thing slide. So it is a lot of work. It is exhausting. I cry a lot, and so do they. Somebody is crying every single day at some point, sometimes multiple ones of us at different points of the day. But honestly, watching them become women of God that love the Lord, that struggle, that have questions, but that we get to now have these conversations together. I just feel some parent out there needs to change their confession. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. I'm not trying to paint this picture that it's just all this wonderful, I'm a perfect parent, they're perfect kids. I am the furthest thing from a perfect parent, and they are not perfect kids. But change your confession. Decide that, you know what, man, this season's going to be challenging, and in the challenge is going to be so much joy. It's been my favorite stage of parenting, and it brings me great joy.
Wow. Now with all this crying, is Bernie crying too? Is he?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I have to tell you the funniest story. So really fast, the funniest story the other day, about once every 3 or 4 months, we have a big come to Jesus family meeting. And it's usually, I mean, it's all women. So there's so much emoting, except for our dog. He got a boy dog, but that's it. And so we're all sitting in the family room, and everybody has a chance to be heard, and everybody's got some sort of hurt they're carrying, and they feel misunderstood. So we just sit there and have a big family powwow. And this time everybody was like, every daughter was crying. Like everyone was like, and I feel like I'm failing at this and you don't blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I look over at Bernie. Bernie has tears streaming down his face. And I go, honey, why are you crying? He goes, I don't even know why I'm crying. Well, the only one not crying was the dog, and I'm pretty sure that he was next. He's gonna be like, oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
I echo though, they are great years. My daughter's 19, my son's 16. They are great years. But I think if you're asking me what's bringing me joy, what is bringing me joy right now is letting go. Yeah, letting go. Like for someone that is, you hold your kids tightly, you can hold things tightly, you hold ministry or whatever it is, jobs or whatever become the thing that you really feel you want to shape and grow. And that's not necessarily a wrong thing, right? To hold our kids tight or hold something that God entrusted to us tight. Right. But I think often we don't understand the beauty. We talk about the pain of letting go, but there's something really beautiful about letting go. I think it takes someone of maturity to let go. I think it takes a wisdom to let go. I think it takes trust to let go. And there's a beautiful reward in letting go, because I think that's where you really get to see what God gets to do in your life when you're so open-handed with all of those things that maybe you're a little closed-handed before about. And actually letting go into God's hands always means there's multiplication. So I'm letting go at everything. You can have that. You can have that. You can take my kids. You can have my I'm like that. So yeah, want a 19-year-old?
So now are you going to sing it, Natalie?
What?
Letting go.
I'm going to sing it, she said.
Oh, yeah. I can only do that now when my kids aren't present. It's so funny how everybody loved Frozen until they didn't.
Yeah.
Totally. Exactly. 100%. It's an awesome movie. Oh, I can't stand it.
I don't ever want to hear that song again.
Exactly. That's right. Good. Well, guys, we're so thankful we got to hang with you. Is there anything else you want to talk about or discuss? Or
We're just honestly, we're believing. I will say this, like, we've said we're busy. We've got these, everybody's busy, but we made a decision and a sacrifice to come out and do these events because we want people to find Jesus. And we're believing that. We're believing that people are going to find Jesus that night. And so anyone who's listening, just set a priority to come. Like it is a choice to go. I'm going to set some time aside for myself, and I'm actually going to go, and I'm going to be encouraged in my faith. I'm going to experience the wraparound presence of God, and I'm going to be with other believers and get charged up. But think about and ask God who it is that you could bring, because people will hear the gospel. It'll be very clear that night.
And to mums, bring daughters. One of the things we love is seeing generations in the appeal moment, seeing mums and daughters and grandmas and aunts all walk together to respond to a moment in the presence of God. So I would say, we talked a lot about our kids, but honestly, the best thing you can do sometimes is just put your kids in the right environment and let God do what God can only do. So I would encourage mums to bring daughters too.
I love your accent, Charlotte. And
I don't have an accent. You have an accent. I speak English. I speak English. It began in my country, so therefore I don't have an accent. Sorry. Just had to make sure we all work.
You did.
That was awesome. Well, here's where I was going to go with my joke was going to be, I'm not sure when mums are blooming, but you would bring mums to the...
Right. That's so good. Totally. Mums.
That's so Cankle Fritz.
What a joy to talk to you guys. Thank you so much for having us.